Today's guest is Isabella Forciniti, an Italian sound artist, researcher, and performer based in Vienna. Her projects focus on the artistic potential of digital networking and environmental data. Her academic background encompasses communication sciences, multimedia, and computer music. She was featured on the Shape Plus platform's selection and performed in many of Europe's avant-garde music festivals, like Wien Modern, Ars Electronica, Unsound Festival, and more. My name is Giovanni Grandi, and this is Let's Talk Music with Frap Tools. Thank you very much, Isabella, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I would like to start by asking you a general question about your music career. So, how did you approach music, and how did you ended up playing the modular synthesizer as your instrument of choice?
I come from a small southern Italian village, Longobucco, in the heart of the Sila National Park in Calabria. It's an idyllic place, silent, but let's say dying place, unfortunately. And in my time off as a hobby, I was playing a drum set with friends, and we started an all-female punk band. But there was somehow a certain contradiction with what we were used to it, because we loved punk, but we also loved tarantella and traditional dance. What we experience most of the time happened in August, where many concerts were held in the main square. And it was extremely fascinating to see how everyone around me, was dancing until they couldn't do it anymore, following the rhythm of this traditional music, which is mostly rhythmical and followed by, of course, a text. And so this was the beginning, so that it is strong relation with rhythm. And we began playing some concerts, but of course it was everything DIY, let's say so. And we were beginners, so but somehow I was really interested in pursuing something with music. So I went to study music privately, to study drum set privately. And learning music was, of course, completely different. I had another mindset, and by watching movies and my interests were growing towards another direction. I soon got to how to say, one of the first interesting piece of music I extremely liked was music by Wendy Carlos. So this was, so to say, my baptized to experimental music, and I got also really interested in krautrock music. So
did you approach Wendy Carlos through her soundtracks? Because you mentioned
exactly,
the
of course,
movies.
Of course, usually we were screening during winter in the weekend some movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, Stanley Kubrick was always like a hit. So we went first with A Clockwork Orange, and then other movies where then I discovered music by Wendy Carlos. So, and I was extremely inspired by the approach and by the instruments. So, and so to say, this was how I got close to experimental music. And later on, I moved to Rome, where I continued to study privately music with a drum set with a great Italian drummer, and at the same time was studying communication. And digital media at the university in Rome. But at this point, I never academically studied music, which is completely something different. After the graduation at the university in Rome, I moved to Vienna to study officially music.
Ah, I see.
So yeah, exactly. So there I went straight. I enrolled at the university, and I began studying composition, electroacoustic composition, essentially. So, and as for now, I mean, Vienna is an extremely vibrant city. So soon I arrived in the city. I immediately had the opportunity to play concert, to get to know the Viennese scene, and it wasn't that long that I played my first improvised concert with great international and local musicians. So as it for now, to simplify, of course I studied at the university. I graduated in media composition, and now I'm applying for a PhD, and as it for now, my work is deeply entrenched in a diverse range of artistic pursuits, embracing performance, composition, research, and innovation.
Just to clarify, you said that as soon as you approached Vienna as a student, you immediately started playing and getting involved into the music scene. But at that time, you weren't playing drums, right? You already
I'm sorry. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, when I moved to Rome, I was interested essentially in playing electronic music. I wanted to combine, so to say, my drum set with effects gear or with electronic, but I never was so successful, or at least the result wasn't. I never was so satisfied about the result. So I was programming a lot. I was doing a lot of computer music, as one would say. So I've learned some programming language for sound synthesis and signal processing, from XMSP to Super Collider, and there I found, so to say, my way. And in the first period, I was also well able to, to improvise with just with computer and programming and make some instruments. But somehow I never was satisfied in the interaction with computer. Computer is still one of the most important element in my in my setup, because it's there. But when I was improvising with other musicians, I noticed how the interaction was completely different. So I've tried out some simple modular semi-modular synthesizers until I found the instruments that I desired. So moving being able to shape the sound by moving knobs or faders, this was responding to my desires. It was much closer to what I was aiming to. I was aiming to interaction. So, and when we talk about electronic music at this point, and we talk about digital instruments or post-digital instruments, so the point is to achieve, so to say, a certain level of interaction. This is still what I would like to deepen even more, what it means for me, interaction as an electronic an electronic musician. So, and this is somehow what I found through modular synthesizer, so to say. A certain interaction is there. So and many interfaces so are make musician able to achieve that. So yes, that's let's say that's it. Yeah.
I see. So you came from basically from the world of endless possibilities of software, and you narrow it down based on the interaction between you and the instruments. Finding some those defining limitations of the instruments that
of course
resonate with you.
Yeah.
I see.
Limitation is also something that I learned from improvisation. So I've played with so many musicians who, I don't know, most of the time were just playing one note. And this is fascinating because I'm not that minimalist in composing. I'm mostly putting a lot of material together, and I developed this amount of material in diverse directions. But I took this aspect in my setup. So being able to work on just a small amount of equipment is something that interests me. So my modular synthesizer is an instrument, an hybrid instrument, which doesn't have many peculiar thing that could make eventually the sound even better, or help me to model even farther CV signal or so. I went for a really easy setup, and I always try to push the boundaries of what I have. Of course, I would like to buy even more, but I would like also to stick what I decided in the beginning, and try to find a way through it, because most of the time is really a struggle to find a creative way with a certain instruments or not. I mean, it depends. Of course, with years, I went in different direction. My growth was clear, and as it for now, eventually I would add some modules or so, but still being able to play a concert with the setup I currently have is for me always something that sparkles a lot my creativity.
I love the idea of the sudden realization of the importance of boundaries from the improvisation environment, because it is like a sort of counterintuitive thing when improvising, because when you're improvising, of course, you're expressing yourself. and you may fear that you don't have enough to say in such contexts, and so you may tend to overcompensate this feeling by actually saying too much and obtaining the opposite effect of creating just chaos. You really, it's true, because you see that the great improvisers are always very controlled into how many things they say, and they tend just to focus on the right ones. And you can find it, I think it's in every field of improvised music, even in maybe classical counterpoint, like improvised fugues. You see that there's just the necessary things. This is a really an excellent point you made.
Yeah, definitely. Even if it's free jazz or standard jazz, you try to find this way of contributing, but doing it in the most finest way. And this is a challenge, because, as you said, especially when we play, I don't know, synthesizer and general electronic music instruments, we tend to be like, how can I contribute? How can my voice be heard? So, and of course, it's one moment until you fall in the noise, in the realm of noise, and this is the way how you want to contribute, which sometimes is also not necessary. Like holding back and eventually just doing something punctual and some point would be still also really, really strong, because most of the time we forget that we still stand on a stage with our body, playing, and still, or not playing, but being there with our tense body. We are already communicating more than what what we could ever imagine. So tension, body, and being there still is also something extremely strong, and that I've seen and experienced myself, definitely, yes.
I think that it's almost like with sometimes with eyebrows, because you don't notice the importance of eyebrows until they are not there. And
Exactly.
and then and sometimes you realize how much a musician is contributing to the whole ensemble until they stop playing, and then you realize, okay, so that was what was holding everything together, even if it was not up front.
Yeah, definitely.
You started briefly talking about your current projects earlier, so maybe if you want to expand on or go on that topic, that would be nice to hear.
So as I said before, so my practice expands from live performance concert to research. And as a solo musician, I play concerts for festivals, and as every other musician, so to say. And as a researcher, I worked at two different research projects. Currently, I'm still enrolled in one of them, called A Sound That Never Was. Essentially, is a project started by Steve Bates and Jake Moore, two Canadian artists, and it consists of a library. A library which is, so to say, modulated and by seismic data and Earth movement of Earth data also. So it's something quite complex, and 15 artists around the world provided a library to it, and we worked on the project for a couple of years now. And I will be the project now is it can be heard, of course, on the website, but it's also installed in a gallery, in the Remai Gallery in Saskatoon in Canada, and where I also will be in a couple of weeks for presenting the project and for a showcase. And of course, I've worked on different projects. I played for several new music ensemble, and currently I'm working with a Viennese ensemble on a bigger project called the Post-Human Social Club, which so to say works a lot around the concept of post-humanity and the relation with music and technoculture, and also how digitality changes our approach in playing in playing music, of course, and in our and broadly in our society. So as you can see, I have different projects, and I've worked at also as a musician for projects like Community of Grieving, which was commissioned by Unsound Festival, the well-known Polish festival. And essentially this project was developed by Zosia Lubowska, a Polish composer, and Julia Giertz from Sweden. And this project, so to say, displays the rituals of the death. So how we as human grieve when we lose something, someone. And this was a transdisciplinary project. Also, we collaborate with dancers, vocalists, and there is also visual arts, a part of the project, with some holograms and sculptures for the holograms during for the performance. And we played at several festivals, from Unsound Festival to Dark Mofo in Tasmania, in Hobart, in Australia last year. And so this is what I'm thinking right now. Yeah, the other interesting research project was the choir and the sound system. Essentially, it consists in a sound system. I mean, we researched the question behind this research project is, can we connect our smartphones in order to create a huge loudspeaker system, a multi-channel loudspeaker system? And two developers worked on an application that made able to bundle smartphones. And through resynthesis, which is something extremely complicated to explain, but through resynthesis was possible to send different partials to each phones in order to have like a really huge multi-channel sound system. And then there was the choir, the second part. Through headphones, it's possible to send to the participants of the performance, like a suggestion of what they could do during the performance. So part of this project is also to analyze what participation means in a performance. So participation, interactions. And as we saw, making an audience participate is one of the most toughest things to do. And in the first part of the project, of course, the technical issue had a certain priority. And the project, of course, is also working on this more anthropological and sociological question of how to make an audience do what I say. So, and this is, of course, if we analyze that, we can go deeper and talk about this soft power of digitality and of the power that in general smartphones have on us, let's say so.
I see. That is fascinating. And it seems that all the projects that you mentioned explore music bound to a specific context. Let it be nature for a sound that never was, or the context of death and grief, or the post-human society, like music and society, music and technology. And it seems that maybe because we briefly talked about it, but we are still moving around the concept of interaction between
Exactly.
music and its context, and the performers and music and conductors and performers, but also instruments and musicians, especially in the choir and the sound system, where you almost don't know anymore who is the instrument in that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually the thing, no? So because everyone can be the instrument. As soon as you lock in the system, you can be the instrument as well. You are a part and actually an active part of this performance. But be aware of the fact that actually I'm still controlling you. So this, this subtle freedom that you think you have, but actually you don't. So this was also what made this project interesting for us. So, and this was actually the concert was the concept of this research project was beginning from what I just said. So how we can we control audience? Can we make the audience somehow be active? So, and how can we do that? And it's the audience really, the audience still has this certain freedom or not. So
yeah, I was almost about to. I mean, it makes me think about the huge problem, like the centuries-year-old problem of free will.
Exactly.
Because.
Exactly.
And at a certain point, you may realize, but do I really need free will? Because it's a very bold concept that makes human think that they are free to do whatever they want. But and then you almost try to hold yourself tight to the concept of free will. You don't want to let it go because you somehow instinctively think that this is something that matters, and this is something that makes us humans. But at the end of the day, it really does it. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Especially in the context of digitality, especially after the corona pandemic. This concept of participation, interaction, got really, really huge. So you are at home, you want to be part of something. So there are concerts online that you can take part of. You can actively participate. You can interact, because in that case, I mean, there is a huge difference between participation and interaction. Interaction is more a characteristic of the technology. Participation is completely something that else. That's most of the time when you think of participation, you're thinking in political terms about of participation. So, and it's interesting how we were able to meld those terms during pandemics. So that's why there is a shift now. I mean, there are so many works in many galleries, installations, and even concerts who allows you to interact, to participate, to be part of it. So, and thinking about, I don't know, like huge pop band as Coldplay or so, they were always, like allowing the audience to actively participate, to do their performance, even if it's just by wearing it's called
like a
bracelets.
Bracelet.
Bracelets, or doing something else. So we can find a different and interesting examples. And another interesting example is, of course, coming from sports. So if you think of North Korean sports events, which are, you can see everyone is participating in making the event great by, I don't know, by just holding, a book or whatever that you can just move. And we here talking about, we are talking about North Korea, who is under a strong dictatorship. So this is also like always coming back, this concept of free will, as you say. So, and participation, interaction is something that can be easily found if we think about propaganda and political propaganda and so on and so forth. So it goes from one point to another. So, which is extremely interesting, to research, to deepen. So,
especially considering that we, at least in Europe, there was a phase or many phases in which free will was was something like was together with science, as opposed to, I don't know, oppressive religions or oppressive dictatorship. And then there was this idea that learning and that the progress and the science led to free will. But we are now living in a moment where science actually may be the contrary, because with quantum mechanics we are rediscussing the concept of free will. We are asking ourselves, but do we really have such thing as free will, or everything is determined? And that's still a deep philosophical problem that it's probably is never going to be solved. But it makes you really rediscuss those concepts that you've been taking for granted for your whole life, because you say, of course, I'm a human being, I'm free to do whatever I want. But maybe what makes you human is precisely the boundaries in which even yourself, if not the society, forces you to play to live in.
Yeah. It's interesting because when we first showcased the project, it was during the Ars Electronica from a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I don't remember anymore. And someone got in the headphones something to do, an instruction. And the instruction was like, I don't know, now you will listen to a melody or to a note. Please sing this note or so. After the performance, one participant came to me and just said, "Yeah, I'm a puppet." This was interesting. Like, okay, I wasn't expecting that someone was already thinking so far, because in the end you're just there listening to some bunch of people talking about the project. We are just trying out, but someone already was asking those questions. So, and am I a puppet or what? Which was interesting, the reaction, and that's actually what we want to spark in the audience. Yeah.
But I think that it also sends a very positive message because many musicians. I mean, one of the most important thing that I heard, I don't remember who said that, but that is that the performer must be at service of the music, must serve the music.
Yeah.
And so we spent, I think that every culture tried to find the best way to convey the most precise set of instructions for the performer to perform. That's basically it, but you're not, I mean, if a concert pianist reads and spends their life into interpreting a score and finding out the best way, are they a puppet? I mean, you're not a puppet just because there is a human being speaking to you and suggesting what to play. And also, there is always room for expressing yourself, because I don't know in this case how precise the instructions were, but if you say if you listen to this note and sing the note, you're leaving out a lot of there's a lot of room to express yourself, because you have your timbre, your vocal timbre, your dynamics, your articulation, your expression. There is so much room to make this piece different every time, which I think that it also explores that you cannot annihilate the human aspect as much
exactly.
as much as you get totalitarian, so to speak.
It's interesting what you said about having a score or not. Also thinking about scores is something extremely strong and interesting, because traditional music has this strong score-based music, as we know, and with electronic music, with the introduction of electronic music, electronic music instruments like modular synthesizer in our case, the concept of having a score is completely strongly shifted to what tradition is. And this is what makes certain musicians, and I don't know, I don't want to say genre, because I mean we can implement modular synthesizer in every context, but this is how strong can be, with electronic music instruments. And also there is a question of reproduction how can I reproduce what I'm just playing now. I'm just having now. So this is also like something that strongly has changed from what we know from traditions. And I don't know why we were talking. Now we are completely changing topic, but because I took a couple of books because I'm not at home, I'm just in my studio, so I don't have all the books. But I just took a bunch of books, and there is this interesting book which that actually deepened this topic of score from Thor Magnusson, and the book is called Sonic Writing, which is this one. I don't know if you already know the book. Maybe you
I didn't.
But yeah, this is extremely interesting book because essentially it explores contemporary music technology, trace their ancestry to previous form of instruments and media. So it's of course it's focused mostly on instrument design and also on the history of scoring, because they are of course strongly related.
Yeah.
Score and instrument goes together. So they go together. So, and this is extremely interesting, and it led me to a deep reflection on what means for me playing modular synthesizer and being able to reproduce in the future what I'm developing now, what I'm working now on. So, and this is also together with the interaction, which moves a lot my artistic practice.
I see. Because after the music recording practice has become widely available, I think that we somehow changed our perspective toward what reproducing music means. Because when you have music stored in a physical media, you tend to say, okay, that's the music I need to reproduce and I need to get as close as possible. But I think that it's like Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise, because you never fully get there to the same like a sort of pristine original idea of music that you need to preserve and carry on in the future. Especially also because you changed as a listener, so it's never gonna be the same. I think that music is a very weird form of art because it needs time to be. It exists only in time and it exists only in the present moment. I mean, the idea that music can be stored somewhere may be a bit deceptive, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I always think of improvised music as music for a blink of an eye. You know?
Yeah.
It's something that you have it now, and somehow I also think that if I think about my music, I cannot sing, because as soon as you record something, as soon as you want to, you need a score. This necessity of making a piece of music replicable. It's something that, for example, for my point of view, I cannot see my music as so eternal, let's say. So I don't know if you know what I mean by that, because as soon as you record, as you have a score, there is this possibility that you can replicate a work. And sometimes I think, is it my work, like music for forever, or just music for a blink of an eye?
I think that you used a very interesting term, eternal, because it reminds me of Latin author Boëtius, who lived in the 6th century. He was called the last of the Romans, but also the first of the Europeans, like or the medieval ones, because he was living really at the shifting moment between classical culture and the new Christian European medieval culture. And he discusses in his the Consolation of Philosophy. He discusses the problem of free will, of course, and with very clever argumentations. And he mentions the problem of. He says that God, because he was a Christian author, so he said that God is eternal, which means that God is out of time, is not in the time as human beings, so is not bound to live in the present with the past and the future, but God has a complete view of present, past, and future at the same time, because he's eternal. Because eternal is not something that lives forever, but it's something that is not bound to development of time. And so by he said, even if a human being could live forever, they wouldn't be eternal. They just would be immortal, which is a different thing.
Exactly.
And so I think that if we stick to this definition, music cannot be eternal by nature, because it needs time to develop and to be enjoyed. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is a great point. Something that I can also see in the book I just mentioned. So, the book is extremely interesting because it offers different views, and but in the end, this is the point. What you just said, even though in other words. And on approaching other fields, but this is essentially what also the book points out. Yes, and on this note also. Because I was just playing computer music or just a modular synthesizer. I wasn't really aware of it until I was asked really to make notes about what I was doing, and of course I found the early work of Susanne Ciani. Yes, because she was a classic trained pianist who later approached, so to say, the Buchla synthesizer, and this was also her question: how can I replicate what I'm doing now? So she began making notes and write down all the patch she was developing, and it is essentially over time became also my approach to a live performance as well, because usually before a performance, if I'm working on a performance, and I also tend to write down the patch and how the signal evolves over time on my modular synthesizer, and this is something that changed a lot how I approach the instrument. So also in terms of awareness. Because I'm, so to say, for this live performance, I'm tied more or less to this path. But even though I have also a certain, margin of improvisation, because this is how I modulate over time certain sounds, how I develop that. This also always depends on the moment, and I don't want to, so to say, to morph much this element. But writing down the path of the patch. helps me a lot to develop a certain awareness towards the instruments. This is definitely something that I have to say. So, and exactly this early approach used by Susanne Chani, it's something that I also more or less took and use in my practice.
Since we almost naturally came back to your patching style and your performances, I think that it's the right moment to edit your patch in, the patch that you made for this episode. And so we will listen to that and discuss it afterwards.
The goal of this patch is to create a single percussive sound that would not evolve over time. The aim is to concentrate on a singular percussive sound element and mold it to my desired shape. The intricate nature and diverse options of modular synthesizers can occasionally affect creativity. Beginning with a single percussive sound can serve as an effective starting point for engaging with an oscillator. As you can see, my modular synthesizer is a hybrid instrument comprising both analog and digital modules. My setup includes the Brenzo Frap Tools oscillator as my primary voice, complemented by plates of mutable instruments and the dual 12-bit digital wavetable drum voice by ALM. I have two filters with distinct characteristics, along with two envelope generators and the quad VCA. Additionally, I incorporate the well-known Batumi LFO and the versatile Mux slicer in various configurations. For my live performance, I often integrate the Erica Synth sample drum alongside the Brenzo. Furthermore, I rely on Pamela's workout as a programmable clock source. And of course, I also incorporate effects such as Beat and Black Hole TSP2 by Erica Synth. Let's listen to the sound I've crafted before diving into the creativity process. My sound source is, of course, the Brenzo oscillator, while Pamela's workout serves as my clock source, orchestrating various elements of my setup. It controls the sequencer, which in turn controls the envelope generator, and which controls the VCA. However, its influence extends beyond these components. It also manages the reset and the frequency of my LFO, while the channel 1 of the clock produces an Euclidean rhythm acting as the master clock. Other channels modulate, as I said, the LFO and retrigger the envelope generator. Interconnecting the channels through a logic operation on Pamela's workout, I combine the edited channels output with the output selection of one of the other channels. These configurations, particularly effective for percussive material, offer versatility and complexity. This method offers an excellent approach for generating polyrhythm patterns or introducing intricacy and unpredictability to your rhythms. Nonetheless, compelling results can also be achieved with simpler divisions. It's crucial to note that despite appearing static, closer listening reveals the subtle modulation applied to the brenzo. Brenzo possesses distinctive modulation capabilities, which are intentionally minimized to concentrate on shaping a singular percussive sound. As you can see, I introduced frequency modulation into the yellow oscillator circuit, adjusting the FM deviation knob to 9 o'clock. Both exponential FM and linear through zero FM are introduced. The linear through zero FM is controlled externally by Pamela's workout through a symbol gate and scaled with the attenuator. In the timbre section, two saw ups coming from my Batumi LFO modulate the pulse shaper and the pulse width modulation. Additionally, the two outputs of the envelope generator control the symmetry knob and the ping circuit. The symmetry knob adjusts the incoming signal towards either the positive or a negative peak of the wave folder. By patching the gate into the pink circuit, it triggers an internal envelope designed to open the wave folder. I opted for a fast decay. The wave folder is also engaged to give the sound some crispiness. Additionally, the envelope generator plays an important role in shaping my sound. By adjusting the envelope, particularly focusing on the attack, we can notice considerable shifts in the sound's qualities. I decided for a softer shape, for a softer attack. And finally, as you can see, the Brenzo offers a multitude of modulation possibilities that subtly influence and ultimately define my sound. I encourage you to delve deeper into exploring the modulation's potential, as it serves as an excellent tool for sound design.
So the first question I have about your patch is that, of course, it relies a lot on what you were saying earlier, the idea of limiting the amount of things to say, because you focused only on a percussive, on defining the shades of a percussive pattern on a percussive sound. But I noticed that the difference between the processed and the unprocessed sound. So the moment you added the reverb and the effects, it changed, but it retained a lot of its original character, which is something that we were talking also in the previous episode with Lucas Herrmann, where he said that it tries to build up a sound that sounds good even without too much effects afterwards. But then the effect is almost like the icing on the cake. But This is of course not always the case because effects can be like a building block of the effect. But what I enjoyed about this patch is the use of silence that you made, because there the space between a beat and the other that gets occasionally filled with the effect. And it seems like the effect is playing a sort of second voice rather than just gluing everything together. And I would like to know how you approach effects and how you approach silence in your patches and in your music.
Yeah, interesting question. Yeah, definitely. Of course, as I said before, I just wanted to create a single percussive sound, which for me means is an easily approach to an instrument, and most of the time I begin doing that. Of course, not always, and it depends of the on a situation. And with percussive element, I can always, of course, each material lets you introduce silent, but I programmed, so to say, Euclidean rhythms, so a pattern that allows me to have, so to say, silence in between. I didn't want to create like a sustained percussive sound, a continuously percussive sound. This wasn't the aim of this patch. Instead, the focus was to a percussive sound that have a certain amount of pause in between. So. And this is usually how I approach percussive sound or rhythmical session in general. And as I said before, with improvisations, I also learned to be silent. So and sometimes while you're playing with others, it can rather be easily. But when you're working on your live performance, it's something that comes less easily. So, but I, so to say, push myself to introduce in the different voices as much as silent as possible, because underneath I am having anyway other voices developing. And in that case, if we think how strong can be just the use of a simple reverb, which leads to a, let's say, to a coda, and you still have the sound. You don't have any more this plucky percussive sound, but still the reverbs allows you to place in this acoustic space still some material of what you have just heard. And this is I usually use reverb for this kind of material is for me really effective, because, as I said, gives me the opportunity to still leave, even for a few seconds, the sound in this acoustic space I'm creating. And it's also interesting what you said about the previous artist, which is that the aim is always to create a sound that needs as less as effect as possible. This is something that I can also rely on, and I can see myself in doing that as well. And but of course, also it depends on the material I have. So, and it's clear that I tend to use effects to develop a sound over time. This is what I do. So, and yeah, it's a question of how you can implement effects. So when I have some samples that are playing, it means that either I'm working on, I previously worked on these samples in order to have it already as I wished, or if I'm playing live material, I know I have already a clear idea how I want to develop this sound with effects over time. And there is, for me, a slight difference between what I'm producing in studio and what I'm doing live. So for me, there is a huge difference between this set of effects I'm using for production. Is something that is used to itself for this production, or for these samples that eventually I'm gonna implement in my live performance, and it's which is completely different than what I usually do in a live performance. So, but as I work a lot with percussive material, I tend to combine different percussive sound, different qualities. And I achieved those different qualities, of course, through synthesis, and also by introducing a diverse range of effects. And this is also what sometimes I'm missing. We tend to forget that we still can develop a sound really in a long time. So sometimes we tend to add material and to add effects to make it sound incredible, and we do that all at once, without having this opportunity of developing or introducing effects or quality sounds over time, different quality sounds over time.
I see. And another question is that at the beginning of this conversation, you said that you tended to use many voices or many layered sounds in your music, but in this specific case, you were still able to achieve a wide palette of sounds, even though you were using just one sound source, and that was through mostly thanks to modulation. So my question was, when you mentioned the many voices, you were saying like voices as instruments or as sound sources, or in the more abstract way of voices, because you can also have like one sound source making multiple voices thanks to modulation.
No, I was talking about, this is a single case, what I've done for today's patch, because I really wanted to focus on this single percussive sound. And this is for me just one voice. One voice that by listening to it, you can experience a subtle modulations, and this is what I wanted to achieve. But also for to make the audience able to approach the instrument also in different ways than we usually do. But when I work on live performance or music piece, I tend to have really different voices, so a sound material together. And my goal is always to make them hearable, so that still you can listen to them as a complete product, as something that goes together, but still that gives you the opportunity to discern between those voices. And this is something that I achieve with by affecting different sounds.
Another question, which is not related to the patch, but it was more on something that you said earlier. You mentioned, you briefly mentioned Wendy Carlos and the Krautrock, and also Suzanne Ciani. So I think that it could be nice to expand on the topic of your influences and if and how they shaped the way you perform that we talked about until now. Because of course an influence can be just like that, can be an influence without affecting your way to perform and so.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to say. Yeah, definitely. I listen to really a lot of music, and I let inspire myself on from the diversity coming from different artists. But in developing my own music, of course, I have my approach, and as you said, I don't know if I can say that. When that my performance is closer to one artist instead of one other, but yeah, I've listened a lot to. I'm a huge fan of Suzanne Ciani, and yeah, but not only. There are extremely interesting artists around. For example, one Indian artist who also works with a modular synthesizer called Arushi Jain, if I'm not misspelled it. Yeah, exactly. She's lovely.
Great.
I mean, her way to combine modulars, her voice. She can create extremely strong. Delicate, but at the same time extremely strong soundscape. I found her way really inspiring, and also Basak Kunak, if I'm not misspelling it as well. So well known as Ha Cosmos. She's yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's everyone actually.
And also Arushi Jain goes by the name of Modular Princess sometimes, right?
Modular Princess, exactly. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Yeah, of course, yeah. A Cosmos is or Ha Cosmos. I don't know how to say this. Yeah, exactly. She's for me really interesting because she. She's a really versatile artist, from I don't know, to pop production to the realm of noise music. She's really, as I said, versatile, and this is something that I strongly admire. She works with, different setups, from modular to other standard keyboard synthesizers, and her live performances are also really great performance and really diverse, and this is something I really appreciate. Versatility is something that sparkles my creativity a lot, and I find it really inspiring. And yeah, there are so many artists I like a lot. Yuko Araki, I don't know if you know her. She's a Japanese artist who also released on Room 40. This is a well-known Australian label by Lawrence English. And yeah, she's also having she also has an hybrid system made by computer and several synthesizers as well. And in her release on Room 40, every piece is short, like around 2 minutes. The longest one is around like 2 minutes or so. And this is also something that fascinating me a lot, approaching music with a small amount of times, I have your attention just for this time frame, and that's it.
Yeah.
We go to the next track, which is eventually even shorter. But I developed something just for this short time frame, which is something extremely bold, I would say. So, and this is something which is also fascinating me a lot. The list can be really, really long because
I do. It's very beautiful. The fact that you can have short songs again, because it's something that I faced myself last year when I was working on my next album, and because I found that something recorded was lacking some variety to the development, for justifying that length. And at that point, I realized that you could either add some varieties and add some development, or you can just make the piece shorter. And there are two ways of getting the right amount of variety and meaningfulness in the piece. And I realized this when I was listening to Handel's Water Music, because there are a few pieces that are just like 1 minute long, 1.5, and you don't miss anything when they finish. They are over, and you're like, what a good piece. Let me listen to that again. But if but it's not
I totally agree.
But it's not the same as just having the same piece that repeats 2 times by design, because that would have been boring. But
exactly.
But if you as a listener choose to replay the song, then that's a completely different. And I was like, well, yeah, that's totally possible. I mean, he says everything that he had to say in 1 minute, and that's fine. Nobody ever complained. I mean, it was for the King of England, so so I agree that this is bold, but it's also beautiful, because we need to regain the ability of making short music, and not just because we have a shorter attention span through reels and short videos, but also because it is possible to say something.
It's possible, exactly. I totally agree. And I wanted to mention another artist. Mira Calix. I see her work really. I see my work really close to her by the organization of the sound material. Mira Calix, who unfortunately passed away in 2022, and I am still a huge fan, and her work is interesting because combines electronic sound elements, sound qualities, and also classic, traditional music instruments, and she does that really, really well. How she combines all those voices, let's say so. This is how she introduced one sound to let it fade out, and at the same time comes something new, or a percussive patterns who counterpoints to something completely different. And so this variety is strong, is really inspiring. So, and this is more or less the approach that I also see in myself while making music or composing or whatever. So Mira Calix in that case is also extremely powerful. So she has, she worked with also hybrid instruments. So most of the time with by sampling. So but she's not so really focused on modular synthesis. But this is also something that I don't see as a as a problem or so.
No,
but,
no,
yeah,
by
yeah,
by
yeah.
any by all
Yeah,
means.
yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, so I appreciate this the quality that comes from our work a lot. So. And yeah, of course, as I said, Mira Calix, I'm also a huge fan of Oteka. So, or also Vladislav Delay, also the Finnish musician, and AGF, who is also a partner of Vladislav Delay, also known as Sasuripati, is actually name. So I have, with AGF, I met her like a couple of years ago in Darmstadt, and I had a workshop with her, and it was really strong. And she's also part of the Female Pressure collective, founded by Electric Indigo, who is an Austrian musician, DJ, and producer. And yeah, with AGF, we talked a lot about female and queer musicians in music and in production. And she introduced us to many great musicians from Southern America, Middle East Asia, and African musicians. So it was extremely inspiring. And the same framework at the time, I also met Cedric Vermont. Is also well known for publishing on his label music from non-Western music, so music coming from artists from all around the world, from Southeast Asia, Middle East, Southern America, and so on and so forth. So this is also something I had the opportunity to get to know many musicians from many cultural backgrounds. So this was also something that you don't get to know at any university. So I always fortunately had a strong interest in many artists coming from different, not like just Western culture. So this was always a plus I had, but of course getting to know many other artists coming from well-known and experienced musicians was a good input. So and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I see. Because I also reckon the importance of the social importance of the Female Pressure Collective and what they are doing. Because in their statement they say that it's not that there are fewer women than men, or women
No.
and also queer musicians and basically non-men musicians, but it's just that they're less recognized. And as a matter of fact, if you think about it, that's true even from the perspective of man as myself. Because when you mentioned your influences, it was a very well thought out list of musicians first and foremost, and regardless of their gender, but they happen to be mostly women. But that comes afterwards. And so, but
exactly.
then when you think about it, you say, yeah, they are there. There are plenty of them, but maybe they're just not visible. And how can I say, as part of the common knowledge, I would say,
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
other musicians. Because when I remember an interview to Caterina Barbieri,
Mm.
when people, or I think it was just something that she said in a post or something, but she was basically getting a bit tired to people asking if I don't know, Klaus Schulze was among her influences, and she said, yeah, maybe, yeah, it could have been, but if I have to pick my influence, it could have been like Laurie Spiegel, for example,
Exactly, exactly.
and stuff like that. So it's not the
Yeah,
first thing that comes to mind. That's
exactly. That's the problem. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, there are extremely well-known female musicians, and the problem is that the narrative that we are used to it is doesn't suggest that the first, so to say, options you have in suggesting a musician is a female, but
yeah,
is mostly like a male musician, and this is a lack that I have to be honest is getting a bit better, but still, if you see the our festival, I mean that amount of festivals that invites most of the time male male musicians, where, so to say, there is still this huge gender gap.
mm,
It's impressive. So, but yeah, this is something that you can experience in every music in general in the music industry. It's not just now experimental music, which there is a lot of awareness, but it's not. It's not now that far, which I mean, it's getting better, and the effort to change the approach, the narrative is strong, but still there is a lot of still a gap between this gender gap. So, and as I said, huge festivals tend to have a minor percentage of female or queer artists still. So, and if we, but still, and it's really different from festival to festival, from country to country. So, but we can experience that in our everyday life. And so most of the time when someone is talking about sound design, sound design brings always most of the time the name of male producers, but we tend to forget that Susan Chani was sound designing, as now we call it, already in the 70s by producing the Coca-Cola sound logo. So, you know, those are really something extremely easily to get to it, but still there is a huge lack of knowledge and awareness, and but yeah, I'm positive, and I hope that this in over the years this will get more and more a certain awareness. As I said, this changes a lot from countries to country, from political culture. So it's a lot. So policies, it's something that we should definitely work on. I'm not a politician, so but still I'm an aware person of certain topics. So it's important to display the lack of awareness that is there.
yeah, because and especially everything that can be done should be done, even if then proves to be to have been wrong or better or improvable, because I get that some people might say, for example, if you see an all-female electronic music festival, some people might say, they book those artists because they're female, not because they are good. I get that point, but I think that this is also a necessary kind of a shock therapy towards a proper gender balance, because I think that one needs to rewire the way people think. And
Exactly.
that's, I mean, and I get the idea. I mean, an all-female festival is a statement that says this could happen. Now we did it on purpose. Of course, the idea should be that an artist is booked for its artistic contribution to that performance.
Yeah,
Let them
definitely.
be male or female or everything in the spectrum. But it is also it's a sort of manifesto to say that this could happen in an ideal society, and it's a sort of test environment that we need to pass through, I think, because I think that really, even if it's not the ideal solution, I get that, but it's still the best thing that we can do so far, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this shouldn't be a problem. I mean, there are so great female musician artists, sound artists, and producer. So it's important to get to know them. So this is something that would make us to be more, to establish a certain awareness. So this is yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a complicated topic. So because as I said, it depends a lot on countries, policies. So and yeah, it's in Austria here. There is also a strong financial system that supports artists. So this also something that gives more light to female and non-binary artists. Which you can't say of other countries. So having a financial support gives you the opportunity to develop your work, to continue to be an artist. So without relying on other means. So this is also something that can help a lot a certain narrative to improve or shift in the narrative in that case.
Since your influences are so diverse, but also some of your influences are diverse in themselves, like, for example, A Cosmos that you mentioned. I think that this also has a reflection in your artistic production, because your records or your music that is currently available, some of which we played throughout this interview, are very diverse from one of another. For example, the Rabelaisian Irony is a completely different album than your other ones. Is that right? And I think that
Yes.
you're somehow succeeding into maintaining this sort of multi-faced artistic personality.
Yeah, I like a lot to be versatile, and I don't want to forget where I come from. I mean, I've learned a lot of this traditional acousmatic music or experimental music. This is something that I also would like to implement in what I do, and I try to do my best in achieving a certain diversity when I produce music. So, and sometimes I appreciate. I mean, sometimes I have to say that this works really well and is recognized by the audience, and maybe sometimes doesn't work so well. But I mean, this is what we experience as artists, and then also usually personal opinion. It's as an artist about your work is always a bit stronger than stronger than the feedback coming from the audience. But I am happy to say that I achieved something that I always wanted. Playing my last concert, I got a review where the journalist said that it was almost possible to dance, but the moment after it wasn't anymore. So, and this makes me always laugh because I don't want. I mean, when I'm playing, I don't want to how to say. Now I'm gonna play something extremely rhythmical in order to change it completely the moment after it. No, because this is just the perception of the audience. With at some point is interesting just to read it or just to know that it's like that. So this is something that I'm pleased, but of course, each experience, each concert, each production and projects are always different, and I put every time a different effort on different projects, so everything depends on what I'm working for. Yeah.
Okay, Isabella, we usually ask one final question to our guests, which is if you could pick and decide what the next Frap Tools module would be, what would it be and why?
Yeah, that's a good question, but at the same time extremely complicated. I've tried to think about that, and I was thinking, I mean, since I already own the Brenzo oscillator, I was thinking that eventually the Brenzo could be expanded with a polyphonic MIDI expression device. I mean, it shouldn't be really like a MIDI controller, but something that would allow me to express as well as I could, or to modulate the same parameters by using sensors.
So a sort of tactile interface.
Exactly. Well said. Tactile interfaces, and could be work together. I was thinking eventually with the Brenzo. So you are playing something, let's say like a steady drone, like boo, something that by tactility, I could also modulate almost like an MP controller. That deepen even more the opportunity that I have to interact with the instrument.
That's fascinating.
This was just a random idea, and I could have even more. But of course, I know all the work behind developing a new instrument or an interface. So I imagine that is almost not impossible. Of course, it's a lot of effort, a lot of work behind it. Yeah, but yeah, of course, I was imagining like something, an instrument like also a Eurorack, of course, the Brenzo and this Brenzo expansion, who gives me the opportunity to interact by tactility, a sensor. Tactility sensor with the instrument. It doesn't need to be like a traditional keyboard. It could be something, I don't know. Let me see if I have. It can something that I can squeeze eventually. Something
I see.
That I can squeeze, or something that I can move like I don't know, not like a huge knob, but still like a plate, a tactile plate that I can morph or I can use with my hands, essentially. This is what I was thinking of.
That's a really unexpected suggestion, but it is very interesting and fascinating because, yeah, I myself also had the huge problem of controllers for the Eurorack synthesizer, and I basically, at the moment, I gave up. I don't use controllers. I just use the knobs. I tried some keyboards. I tried some continuous controllers, and I didn't have any satisfying experience. I just have something in the way. I mean, it just made the playing the instrument even more cumbersome. But that's just my opinion. I really cannot stand the touch controllers shaped like a piano keyboard. I think that they just don't make any sense, because the only cool thing of a piano keyboard is that it's three-dimensional. So you have higher keys and lower keys, and that kind of makes sense. And if you have all of them laid out in the same surface, they're just awkward.
That's why I wasn't suggesting any traditional keyboards, but something more. Giovanni, what I think. When I think of instruments, an instrument needs to be played. So what makes an instrument playable? This is always the question that I have in my mind. So that's why sometimes it's what I miss in Eurorack. We have knobs, and but we don't have like a direct control to make to control the instruments even farther. I mean, knobs are already a huge help, and by rotating finally a knob, you can achieve really a lot. But of course, it's not a bow for a violin, or is not it's not like a keyboard for the piano. And this is interesting, and what I've learned by attending this master degree in post-digital lutherie, and it's impressive, and it's extremely tough to find a solution to develop an instrument that is also playable. So, I mean, as I said, it can be everything, something, I don't know, like also it can be a textile, that you can, I don't know, it can be everything, and everything is CV controlled somehow, or controlled incoming CV signals, or
I think that what makes the controller part so difficult in the Eurorack world is that there is not a physical vibrating thing to control, but it's all within a circuit or within a software, and so the controller can be anything, and can be everything and everything else. And so that's a really huge problem, and especially with the modular synthesizer, the controller needs to be mapped every time, because you need to assign it to the parameters that you want to control. And I can understand that this can be a sort of setback for performers, but that's it is something that cannot be avoided for longer. I think the point of controlling a music. So we will get there sooner or later. So thank you very much.
I'm so confident that will be like that. Yeah, definitely.
I would say that we can cap it here for this interview. I think that we covered a lot of fascinating topics, and we have. I think I have so much to think about over the next hours, and I think that I will meet again with in a few seconds with the listeners to perform a patch inspired by your style, by the sound of Isabella Forciniti back in Frap Tools studio. And for now, I would like to thank you again for staying with us and for this very inspiring conversation, Isabella.
Thank you so much, Giovanni, and thank you so much, Frap Tools. It was really lovely to chat with you, and Thank you so much.
Okay, we are here in Frap Tools studio, and this is the patch inspired by our conversation with Isabella Forciniti. I am using the final output and the pulse shaper output on the Brenso to feed all the filters of the Kunsa, all the four of them. I am feeding the square, the pulse output to the filter number 1, which sounds like this. And as you can hear, I am pinging the filter with a gate track of the USA sequencer, and another gate track is opening the send effect here on the channel. So a few hits every now and then will pass through this external reverb here. The other sound is the final output feeds filters 2, 3, and 4. This is filter 2. I am modulating the symmetry of our pulse wave through an integrated version of Falistris yellow oscillator, Falistris yellow envelope, and the gate output, the end of rise gate, is triggering the ping circuit here on the Brenso. And by using this, by increasing the raising time, I am creating a sort of delay over the hit that changes the timbre. Let's open the filter. Hear very different kind of sound. I am closing it, and at the same time I am using another gate track to open the timbre modulation bus in the Brenso and feeding a very high-pitched sine wave of the green oscillator to modulate the other a few parameters of the white section and achieve this kind of sound here. Like by changing the pitch of the green oscillator, I may obtain different effects like this. But I like the almost Ryoji Ikeda kind of sound of this very high-pitched sound. And I can also add some tail to the low-pass gate, the filter, to obtain a sort of low-pass gate kind of effect. And by combining the two filters, I have this sort of dual percussion effect. On filter 3, I am having this very narrow bandpass filter sound through Kunsa skew. I block the semi-normalization from the ping circuit to have a more static kind of sound, and I use a gate signal to modulate the cutoff frequency. Something like this. I can make it even more pronounced by changing the gate pattern, something like this. And this also goes into the very high frequency range together with the modulation over the yellow oscillator. And on my last filter, I have this kind of sound here. With very high Q. which I patched independently over this other channel on the quad stereo channel, which has a effect send always open and a bit more pronounced, so to emphasize the reverberation of the signal and the development of sound in space, as Isabella said. Another key element that struck me of her patching style was to put a gate signal straight into the through 0FM input of the yellow oscillator. Now, through 0FM input is AC coupled, so it decouples the continuous signals like gates or DC offsets in order to have a more precise pitch tracking, especially with external waveforms if we want to modulate the core with another source rather than the green oscillator. And it is not ideal to patch gates into that because it doesn't retain the hold stages. It just have some bursts here and there. But that's the beauty of Isabella's patching, because by patching a gate into this signal, into this input here, we obtain a very nice and glitchy sound. Let me see if I can isolate it for you. I'm gonna add some of them, like here. Let's remove this. So this is like the extreme effect. And you can hear that the oscillator is kind of trying to adjust itself ever so often. And by combining this to the modulation here, can obtain this very nasty sound, which combined with the gate on the Kunsa provides this ever-changing kind of vibe. And by putting everything together, and I think that we can cap it here for today. So I thank you very much for staying with us during this very inspiring conversation. My name is Giovanni Grandi. This is Let's Talk Music with Frap Tools. You can find the other episodes on the major streaming platforms. We publish them on a monthly basis, so if you want to stay updated with the latest episodes, subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming app. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time.